Hello and welcome to the Safety Goals Podcast with Justin Torres and Charlie One, presented by Injury-Free. This is episode 13 with our special guest, Nate Dalena. Now, we don't have Charlie today, but I still promise that I have a great special guest host to come with me and you'll learn more about him soon. But also, that Nate Dalena is just a great guest on his own. He has a wonderful story to tell. He's the executive director of Rugby NorCal, and he has been doing everything he can to make sure that the athletes in youth rugby truly are protected, safe, and are able to improve their skills along the way as they learn the sport. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Okay, guys, so we have Nate Dalena joining us. Finally, long time we've wanted to get you on. It's okay. We know that scheduling doesn't always work how we want, but better to have
Justin
you here
wanted to
than
get
not
you
at
on
all.
for a long time.
Exactly.
I didn't.
And for those listeners who are following us, you may have recognized that voice. That is Josh from last week's episode. We do not have Charlie joining us today, but Josh is just as fun. I can absolutely promise you that.
Way more fun.
Exactly.
Debatable,
Yeah, it is.
But
Depends on the
Nate,
day.
I know that you right now currently are the executive director of Rugby NorCal, which is great. We're super proud of you, formerly of Injury-Free. So having worked with you, I know that you absolutely deserve the position. But that's where you're at now. So I was wondering if you could give our listeners just a bit of background on where you grew up and at what point you decided you wanted to get into sports, whether I was playing or realized you just wanted to be in the industry.
Yeah, Justin, thanks for that. And hi, Josh. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Nate. Good to see you again.
Good. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on. So thank you. It's honestly an honor. I've been, watching all the guests that have been on here before, and it's a lot of fun, even though I'm following Josh. When it comes to sports,
Can't follow the killer.
I've been in sports my entire life. My mother started a dance studio when she was 20 years old. My father was a professional baseball player, played for the Yankees and the Indians. And so sports have just been a part of my DNA forever. I wanted to be a professional baseball player growing up. I was born in a baseball town. So I live still in Fresno, California. And really, sports has been a part of everything that I've ever done, right? Going to school, it was always after school programs. You're always doing something different. You're always playing anything, soccer, baseball, basketball, football, were the main four. And I did that, all the way through college, right? And then finally, once I got into college, I ended up playing rugby there. And that's where my rugby journey started. So it's just been sports have been something I've consistently been in my entire life. And it's something that I'm very grateful for and blessed to be able to be in the industry now as well.
That's great. And I mean, growing up with your father being, a professional baseball player, do you have any really fond memories of either getting to be kind of close to the team, seeing how things work at a professional level?
Yeah. So when my dad made it to the majors, it was 1989. So I wasn't born yet. I was born in 1990, but
Good
he was
God.
the Expos. Yeah, Josh, sorry.
Children.
Yeah. He was the hitting coach for the Expos at the time as well, but I still have a lot of uncles that are, family friend uncles that, have played and had long careers as well. And that are still in baseball too. So pretty cool. And, Jesse, on the Injury-Free team, Jesse Black, her father was also a professional baseball player. And my dad ran into him a couple of times. So kind of a cool little connection there.
Everything comes back full circle.
Yep.
Well,
It is that fraternity, isn't it? There is that fraternity when you get into that level of sport. There's a fraternity it's like no matter where you go and end up, there's always these connections that are there, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It really is awesome. You get to a certain point, and I think it's, when it comes to sports, it's an opportunity for a group of people to come together and do something that they want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing the sport, it's, you're willing to give yourself to that sport. You're willing to give yourself to that game. And when you're playing at that high of a level, you've really dedicated yourself to a game. Right. And so you're around people that all have the same kind of beliefs. And so those fraternities and those friendships and those relationships, really live on for a long period of time because everyone's really trying to think the same way. Right. You have to. If you're not thinking that way, then you're not going to make it that far. Right.
Yep.
And so it's been really cool to see. And I think that's one of the passions that I have for sports just in general is its ability to, bring a group of people together and to really grow and learn about each other and of each other. And obviously, the whole getting better part too. So.
Yeah, the whole team camaraderie aspect of sports is something that really you try and emulate in other things, whether it's, work life, family life. But in sports, to me, it just feels like it's so naturally built that there's very little you have to force because everyone there has that common interest. You all want to win, you don't want to lose. And when you do, you kind of get together and you put your, minds at ease of taking that loss as is, but moving on and trying to, like you said, improve and get better each day.
Yeah, exactly. It's, everyone's working towards a common goal, and you're working towards you create a plan to achieve that common goal, and then you have to learn what worked and what didn't when you're along that path. So it's just cool.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity, and sports in general are just awesome, right? And anyone that wants to get into sports or wants to get their kids into sports, I think it's something that is, I mean, it goes so much farther than just winning and losing and playing a game. It's important to the development of who you are. And just for me, it's a little bit more of a development of me. It's my life. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's for all of us. I mean,
yeah.
that's the funny thing, Nate, is that you look back and you're like, how'd you get here? Is because, I have always said is like you had a great experience in sport. Whatever sport that was, the reason we're still here is not because we hate it, right? Is because we found something incredibly rewarding from it. Either, on the financial side, which I have yet to see, or just the relationship side. In through these games that we play is some of the best relationships have ever been formed. And that's what makes it really cool, really exciting. Is like I played hockey growing up in Minnesota. I played hockey, and my line mate playing defense since second grade. He was in my wedding. I was in his wedding. He's there for the birth of my kids, and all that kind of stuff. Those types of things are stuff you can't make up, and I think it's a really, really that's the heart and the backbone of sport. Is that you find lifelong friends, lifelong brothers, sisters, whatever, and you grow together, and you strive and you succeed together, and you also fail together. And I think the failing together is probably more thoughtful and more it's a bigger teaching moment when you lose together and how you recover together.
Yeah, certainly. Especially when you're going through different types of hardships, being able to, have someone else there to support and to, get back up and go. That's the hardest part, right? After any sort of failure, any sort of loss, you have to get back up and go, right? And so having people around you that are trying to work towards it, I think it's great. I think it's right. I think it's great.
Speaking of losing, when was your dad with the Yankees?
He was he played in their organization from 82 is when he was drafted to 87. I think 87 or 88.
So your dad knows a lot about losing. So as a Twins fan, I have to take my shots at the Yankees when I can get them.
Take them in.
Because it's like we have the record against most losses for a single team in the playoffs to the Yankees. They've only swept us like 8 times in the playoffs. So I just wanted to take a personal shot at the Yankees, not at your dad, but at the Yankees in general. So,
well, maybe if he was up, maybe if he was up in the bigs at that time, they would have won. But he was behind Don Mattingly for that whole time he was there. So
you're not going to get much time.
Tough spot for
not,
a 5'10".
Not following Donnie baseball. Yeah,
tough spot for a 5'10" Italian guy, but he did well. So
yeah, I know. But he was playing against battling out another 5'10" Italian guy.
I know. It's in the cards sometimes. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Sports are in full swing 24/7, which means athletes are bound to get injured. Injure-Free is a software platform used by youth sport organizations and schools that was developed to help coaches, parents, and administrators communicate injuries that occur and ensure a safe return to play. These sports safety networks are essential for sports teams working to provide the safest possible environment for their families. For more information or to schedule a demo, please visit www.injurefree.com. That's www.injurefree.com.
Yeah, Donnie baseball.
I mean, Nate, you mentioned that you went to college and then that's where your rugby journey started. And I think a lot of people think of rugby and they immediately think football without the helmets. And football already is a pretty dangerous looking and sounding sport to most people if it's not played properly with the right protection. So, being that this is the podcast presented by Injure Free, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, do you have any history with injuries that came from rugby in general, and how has that, shaped what you do now with Rugby NorCal and your own experiences having kind of pushed your new future for what you see?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, the rugby in and of itself, it's just like any other sport, right? You're going to have your injuries here and there. It is what it is. You're going to get injured in any sport that you play. It's always a risk, right? And putting my insurance hat on, that's my job, right? Is to, evaluate risks, see how we can mitigate it, right? And see how we can make sure that, they don't do our best to make sure that it doesn't happen, even though it does, right? And so really, when I'm looking at, a sport like rugby, there's actually a lot more mitigation that they have to incur in order for injuries to not happen, right? So we teach the tackle in the contact area a lot different than football. It's a lot more of a wrestling takedown. I like to say that rugby is like wrestling, basketball, and soccer combined, and we can go into like a lot of detail about that in regards to movements and how different techniques are done, right? But no one really knows about rugby in general in the United States, right? It's still very small in regards to other sports, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey, right? Any of those sports, right? It's still relatively small, but the growth looks good.
You were going to say real sports, Nate. I heard you. You were going to say real sports.
That's not what I was going to say, Josh. I appreciate that. But any others? I guess you could say real sports in the United States, right? Because it really, there's the big four, and then that's about it. Right. But we're seeing a lot of really good growth in the sport as well, though. There's a lot of interest in regards to how we are tackling. I think the education is getting out on, proper tackle techniques, and that's helping the growth. I think also 100%. There's a lot of people out there that are, interested in putting their kids into different situations and exposing them to different types of things as they're growing up. Right. Which I think is very valuable as well. So when it comes to like the sports and injuries, I think you're going to have injuries in every sport that you play. And I think each sport needs to look at what their risks are and then figure out how to mitigate it. Right. And I think rugby's doing a pretty good job of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's really interesting because, the way that I described rugby to you is what I hear everyone else say. When I say rugby, they think football without helmets. But what you described it as, you didn't even mention football as a sport. You're going with wrestling, basketball, and soccer, which I think is really interesting. So I guess the other question I have is, do you think that the sport of rugby has a really big misconception around it of what it really is? That people just look at the ball that you're using, which is shaped like a football, you play with goalposts just like a football game, and they take that, but they're not really looking at the ins and outs of how the game is played, the tactics, the moves. And I think that might be something that really a lot of people don't understand, is that it's not as close to football as you may think.
Exactly. And really the best way to learn about rugby is to play it. Second best way is to watch it. I tell all my kids that I coach that. I tell all my parents that as well. In the United States, there's not many people that have played, and there's not many people that have watched. Right. And so you look at it and you see tackles, right? You see goalposts, you see a football shaped object. Right. And so, I mean, that's what you're going to, I don't blame anyone for thinking that like immediately, because it's the obvious thing that gets in, that you see. Right. But really, once you play, it took me probably about 3 or 4 games to realize, man, this is completely different. So I found rugby at St. Mary's College of California. I went there to actually play baseball. I had a tryout. I didn't make it. And I had to do something. I enjoyed football in high school. And they didn't have a football team. So I said, okay, I'm going to play rugby. And so I got on the team. It was a lot of fun. We're having a blast. I started playing a few games, and then 3 or 4 games in, I go, this is completely different. This is the movements are different. The only thing that's the same really is that obviously there is contact, right? But then as I became a coach and as I've started to instruct kids on what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it, our tackle is really like a blast double in wrestling. It's actually it's a blast double, just taught in a rugby kind of way. So, and then the movements are all basketball, how, creating space by moving defenders, using different movements on the offense. And so the game is a amalgamation of a lot of different things that I think honestly is great. And I think it's a great sport for kids to get into, because it really puts them into a position that they don't have to get into in any other sport that's going on in the country right now, certainly, because everyone's got to be able to do everything, right? You have to play defense, you have to play offense, everyone runs with the ball, everyone has to tackle, everyone can score, right? So it's a lot of fun, right? We have a blast out there, and everyone gets measured to do the same things, which is rare in sport.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of funny because, you with rugby and then you have Josh with hockey. You kind of have the two most physical sports probably that exist. I mean, I don't know another sport where you can go and tackle someone without pads or throw down your hockey stick and start fighting center ice. I mean,
You don't fight that much.
Maybe you didn't, Josh, but I think you're kind of scrappy.
Josh is Scrap City for sure. Don't let him fool you. Scrap City for sure.
But
there were a few incidents.
He's got that Viking in him,
I think it's definitely interesting, though, that these are the sports that truly are not the most popular here, especially in the States. Hockey is one of the main four, but until you're getting to more cold weather regions, you don't see hockey being a huge thing out here in LA. And we have two professional hockey teams. And it's interesting to me that, with rugby, there's not really much of a professional landscape of players here in the US, but overseas you see it a lot. So I guess, do you see and use a lot of what you learn from overseas European style rugby and translate that here, or is there an Americanized style of rugby at this point?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. So there's a couple things that are going on in the professional rugby space in the United States right now that I think are awesome. One's Major League Rugby, MLR. It's been around for a while now, for a bit. I'll say a bit. And they have teams across the country. I've got a few buddies that are playing on those teams. St. Mary's has a lot of players that go and play MLR, and so I like to follow them, and so that's growing pretty well, actually. And they've had some reduction of teams per year, and then they have some increases in teams in different locations. I think there's a Miami and an LA team coming this year again, so that's great. And then there's another track. It's called Sevens Rugby, right, which is the same size field as a 15s rugby game. I guess I'm gonna have to take that back. So rugby union is 15 on 15. That's what Major League Rugby plays. Right, 15 guys on each side on the field playing against each other. It's a lot more contact, a lot more close quarters. There's also sevens rugby, which is exactly what it sounds like, 7 on 7, with the same size rugby field, right? And so the games are 2 7-minute halves, 14 minutes total, and it's like just fast, unbelievably fast, huge tackles, a lot of offense. It's a ton of fun, right? And so really, there's two options for whatever you're kind of into, right? In regards to the sport, in sevens, it's called PR Sevens. I think it's Premier Rugby Sevens is what the professional organization is, and I think it's really cool what they're doing. They're taking a trick out of the lacrosse craze and how they would bring everyone to a certain place. All the teams play at one location. It's a tournament style at that day, and then so it's a whole day for the fans, right? And they get to see multiple players, men's and women's, and be able to play throughout the whole day. And then there's a champion at the end of the day. And then however many tournaments you win, then there's a championship, and then there's a champion. It's awesome. I love it. And sevens is the Olympic version of rugby as well. And so there's been a really big push on the Olympic side in the USOPC to push sevens rugby across the country. And I think there's a really good opportunity, obviously, for both types of the games, because there's benefits to both. But I think sevens obviously has the USOPC track, which makes it a little bit easier to get into communities.
Now, Josh, I think one thing that I want to just ask you is that for you have a really unique understanding of kind of the insurance side of sports and how sometimes it's not as easy as you'd think when you have to look at insuring players and making sure that they're safe. Is there anything that you've seen from the more physical sports that you think kind of are trending upwards in the sense that we've done better to protect these athletes?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the past is that those more contact oriented sports, like a rugby, like a hockey, like a football, they've always been the ones that have been leaders in protection. And how to hit proper, how to tackle proper, how to take and receive a hit on those different things. They've always taught that early on, to prevent those injuries long term. One of the things that I saw that was, I personally believe, was kind of a detriment on the hockey side, was that when they took checking out of at the U12 level for boys and girls weren't checking, period. Which, to my daughter's dismay, she hated the fact that she couldn't hit, and she played hockey up until she was a senior in high school. But that contact is, you teach that early on, so you know how to take and receive, or receive and give that hit properly, so you're not trying to hurt somebody. So these other sports that have been out there, that all of a sudden they go, oh my God, there's contact, like soccer. Soccer has been a contact sport since the dawn of soccer. Anyone who has watched it understands that it is a full contact sport. They're running into each other, they're banging, and that's what makes it fun and exciting too. But they didn't really teach that type of interaction at an early stage. They all of a sudden just went, oh my God, we better talk to these kids about, heading the ball properly. And, when you're getting bumped around, you're getting knocked around, how to take it, how to give it, so you're not, hurting someone. Because that's what I think hockey and the rugby and the football have always done very well, is teach that from the day you step on the ice, the day you step on the pitch, or on the field, is how to take and give a hit properly. So you're not going to get hurt, and the other person isn't going to get hurt. It's just part of the game.
Nate,
So,
I wondered.
With that,
No, sorry, Josh,
go ahead.
Continue.
Sorry, I was just going to say, with that comes the idea of insurance and how that comes into play. And because you're doing those proactive things on teaching how to hit properly and how to take it properly, you're going to have less injuries. You're still going to have them no matter what we do. Is you're in a contact sport, and any sport that you're out there, you're still going to have injuries, period. But if you're teaching proper ways and the fundamentals of any sport, is you're going to reduce those injuries exponentially. And I think in turn, that is going to have a direct impact on the insurance side of things to help mitigate rates. You never say lower rates, but help mitigate rates.
Yeah,
Well,
I couldn't agree more there, Josh, for sure.
I was going to say, Nate, for you, in rugby especially, have you seen the push to continue to ensure and improve player safety be at like an exponential increase as of late? Or do you think that this has been something that's been trending for years for them? Because I know that rugby is not the most talked about sport, so most people's knowledge about where it's been versus where it was is really not going to be so prevalent.
Yeah, I think rugby has this unique mentality that they're always willing to, the world rugby is willing to change rules and change the game in order to create safety, right? In order to create safer environments. And if you look at the game from the 80s, it is it's incredible. Honestly, it's striking almost. And the differences that you see now from when it was then, the evolution that has occurred, the rules that are now in place, it's almost a completely different game, right? And there's a lot of rules that are put in place in rugby that create it's just safer opportunities, right? And just create safer environments. For instance, any tackle, especially in the youth game, they're looking at the chest now. They're actually thinking the base of the sternum. There's a discussion going on in rugby that any tackle above the base of the sternum is going to be a penalty. Right now, it's really anything above the chest in youth, and in adult, it's anything like that's above the shoulders. And if there's any head contact at all, it's usually an immediate red card. Player gets sent off the field, right? And so there's a lot of player safety initiatives that are always occurring. And getting into the minutia of it, we can, like in regards to scrums and lineouts and things like that. But really, World Rugby has never been afraid to make changes to help the game get more safe. And especially when it comes to youth, right? In youth, that's all we're really concerned about, is that everyone's teaching the tackle technique and the contact techniques properly, so that players can understand what they need to do on the field in order to have a good time, and in order to, have a positive experience. And then, if you win, great. But really, we want kids to have positive experiences in the game, and, ensure that they want to keep coming and keep playing, right? Keep coming back and keep playing. So
I think that's extremely well put. And I mean, you also bring up a great other point, is the fact that sports today are always going to look extremely different from how they used to look in the past. Sports are an evolving concept. You look at it now with basketball, the emphasis of the 3-point shot. You look at it with football, now you don't need a quarterback that can just throw. You need the one that can run too.
Yeah.
Soccer players, you want them to be able to pretty much play defense, midfield, offense. So I think just overall, sports are always going to evolve. And with that, I'm wondering if in your time in the sports industry, it doesn't have to particularly be with rugby, is there something that was kind of a big eye-opener that for you, maybe coming in as a former player, never really thought about until it was put in front of your eyes and said, oh, wow, this might actually be a pretty common problem area that I think we would like to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been thinking about this question for some time now. And actually, it's really more recent that I've had a bigger realization is that we're in this world to, I'm in the sports world to help make change, to help, progress, to help move forward, right, to help make things safer. And I really don't realize I'm in it every day. And so I see it. I know where we want to get the sport. I know or the sports. I know what we need to do to create safe environments. I know what we need to do in order to help progress these things move forward. And so I think that everyone knows this. I think that it's like common knowledge in society, and it's not, different ways to tackle in football or different ways to, run your organization for it to be safer. Because if I wasn't in this world, maybe I wouldn't know it ever. Right. And so really, I think what's shocking to me the most is that like I need to do a better job and we need to do a better job of just educating and getting the word out on how to make games, sports, and environments safer for players. And it's up to people that are in my position to, offer those educational opportunities in order to get the word out on how things can be done. And then it's up to those people that have listened and learned to see if they want to implement or not. And we need to understand that, some people don't, and that's okay. But, the ones that do, we are going to be able to make some really good change in the world of sports and, inevitably, individuals' lives when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Not many youth sports administrators began their careers with the dream of negotiating insurance rates. Most have the love and passion for the game and saw it as a way to inspire the next generation of youth athletes. However, nowadays insurance can be the single greatest cost for a youth sports organization. At American Sports Insurance Services, we've done the work for you and created the single most comprehensive youth sports insurance program on the market. We did it by aggregating the largest youth sports injury database in the world. Let us do the heavy lifting and represent you for all your risk management needs. For more information or to get a quote, visit www.getamsis.com. That's www.getamsis.com.
Nate, that's amazing that you say that, because it's 100% true. And on that same branch of that tree is what I've seen being involved in sports, just because I'm markedly older than you two, is the fact that parents come in and make this assumption that it's just this well-oiled machine when it comes down to sports. They come in, they sign up, and they expect everything to just be almost at the professional level.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how complex and convoluted youth sports was until I became president of my hockey association. And when I did that, it opened my eyes and went, oh my God, there are so many moving parts here, and there's so many opportunities for failure at so many different levels, whether that is registration of a kid, whether that's the insurance side of it, whether that's picking teams and tryouts and all these different things that go into managing and running a sports organization. It's ridiculous how much it is and what kind of a business it is, because really it's no matter if it's volunteer based, 100% volunteer run organization, it is still, a business that is run kind of haphazardly. And all these parents expect everything to be perfect. They expect their kids to be the number one shortstop, the number one striker, all this. And the reality is that there's so many other kids that are out there and so many other things that are going on, that if I had a one wish, it would just be for parents to appreciate a few things. One, the time is short. Appreciate the kids and the time that you're there. Two, volunteers are running this organization wherever it is. It's still volunteer based. And two, treat the officials with dignity and respect. That's something that I absolutely love about rugby. That is my favorite thing about rugby. Not only is the camaraderie of rugby the probably top 3 of sports, period, but the rules that they put in place for the parents, players, coaches, and everyone, and how they respect the referees that are out there. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, Nate.
Yeah, I'm sorry for cutting you off. It's just a huge part of our culture. And so I get really excited when people bring it up, honestly. Yeah. Now, in saying this, that we can definitely be better. Everyone can be better. And I mean, everyone can be better at being more understanding in regards to referees. There is, in rugby in and of itself, there is a rule that only the captains on the field can speak to the referees. Everyone else cannot, right? And so let's say I'm the head coach of a team, right? I nominate my captain. Doesn't matter what level too. So like, for instance, on our U10 team, I've got a 9-year-old that is our captain, right? I talk to the 9-year-old. I say, hey, I need you to go tell this to the referee. My captain will go up to the referee and, make a request or ask a question or something like that, right? And so in rugby, the captain on the field of each team is the one that speaks to the referee in regards to questions or comments or anything that needs to be said or that they need to look out for, right? And then after that, really, it's a profound respect for an individual that's just trying to manage a game, right? That's trying to manage a game. And I think if other sports took this mentality, we wouldn't have such a referee shortage across the country. I think it's one of the biggest detriments to sports right now is our referee shortage. Rugby is going through one right now as well. I think everyone is after COVID. I think a lot of referees after COVID just hung them up, deservedly so if they wanted to, right? No problem with that. But the outlook of, convincing someone to referee, developing that referee, and then getting them on the field, excited to be on there, and then their day being ruined by someone who disagrees with a couple of calls. I think we all need to realize that referees are human. Referees are people that make mistakes as well, and they're out there to help the game, and we want to be out there to support and help them too. And we'll get there. And I think there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen across all sports, including rugby. But I think we do have a nice model in our game of rugby that kind of shows, something that could work to help, right? Something that can work to help.
Yes.
So. Yes, certainly. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Josh, because I think the culture of the sport, the culture of the game is really unmatched, right? The community that it builds in rugby is something that's different. And so I just appreciate that question. I love being able to talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is one of the things that I talk about all the time is that, when I talk to executive directors and CEOs of major organizations, and they're always talking about, we don't have enough officials. We don't have enough referees. We don't have enough umpires. And I said, there's a reason. And I said, rugby is, if you want to match, imitation is the highest form of flattery. Imitate how these organizations how rugby organizations treat their officials, and put that into play. And I was like, I don't know, parents aren't going to like it. Who cares? Kids want to play. Yes, this is how you have to treat them. And, especially having coaches not be able to speak to an umpire or a referee is the best.
It really, having the captains speak to the referee on the field it's a great deterrent to, when you're really hot as a coach, right? And I am a coach. I don't know if everyone knows that, but I am a coach. I coach U10, U12 in middle school rugby. And having to be able to, talk to a 13-year-old and say, hey, I need you to say this to the referee, or I need you to tell the referee this, or to look out for this, right? It allows the coach to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, hey, we're playing a game here, right? And, for me as a coach, as long as a game is being played safely and officiated in a way where the game is safe, right? Then I have no problem talking to my captain and having the captain, tell the referee what to look for, right? Which is good.
Seriously, I mean, think about this. It's like you're looking at a 9-year-old, and you might have smoke coming out of your ears because of something that just happened, and now you've got to take that smoke and anger and look down at a 9-year-old and go, "Okay, Jimmy."
Yeah.
It's a tall task.
Over to the umpire and tell him, and this kid's got to, and it teaches this kid so much that he's the mouthpiece for the coach, right? And he's going over and has to have this conversation with the umpire and go, okay, this is what we're seeing. And, however he explains whatever the question is, it's like, that's really good. And that's going to teach that kid a lot.
Exactly. And what's great too, it's kind of known in rugby, right? And so the referee gives that player the attention, right? Like evaluates and says, okay, right? It's not like something where it's like, oh, get out of here, right? You're a 9, right? Like, no, it's understood that the captain is the one that speaks to the referee, right? Doesn't matter who the captain is, doesn't matter what game it is or what the age groups are, right? And you listen and you take in that feedback and then you evaluate, right? So it's just it's a really interesting. It's a different way to approach communicating with the ref, and I think it is successful in regards to helping players and coaches funnel what their frustrations are, if there are frustrations that are going on in the field, right? And then obviously parents get hot, that's okay, right? Games are competitive, your kids are out there, so I totally understand where it is and what that's all about. But I think as parents see that the coaches and the players are how they interact with the referee, it helps the parents understand how approaching the referee or talking about a referee is done in rugby as well. So
it teaches how to talk to people and adults, period. As a 9-year-old, that's going to go a long way to be able to talk to an adult, convince them on what the outcome that you're looking for is. You're building a bunch of really, really good used car salesmen. Good job, Nate.
Well, at least they know how to talk and speak, right? Which is good. Is good. So I did want to take it back to one thing you were talking about though, Josh, in regards to like the organizations in youth sports and how there can be a level of dysfunction in some way, right? I think you're completely right in that, it's a group of, in some cases, it's a group of volunteers, right? In some cases, there's one guy, right, that wants to do something, or one girl or one woman that wants to, create a team. And so every youth sports organization that you approach or that you get into, it's going to be different situations everywhere. And I think it's the responsibility for people that know, what you're doing, what to do and how to do it and how to be safe. It's our responsibility to, educate them on what needs to be done. Hey, here's your base level of things you need to do. And here's what works. And here's what we need you to do in regard to making sure that this is safe. Right. And so I think taking that approach that we have, right. I think taking the approach that you've done your entire career and taking the approach that we have and offering the advice on how to, create safe environments, it's invaluable, right? Because at least we can streamline something because I know that everyone is in a different situation and every club is in a different situation. And they go out to the fields and they're all dealing with a bunch of stuff, not only, in regards to this team or club that they're running, but also their everyday lives, right? What they're doing for work, what they're doing, to feed their family. Right. And so I think it's a good point that we got to be there as people that can help them run create a good product, as I would say, create a good product for the people in their community that want to participate in that sport.
Yep. I totally agree. And it's spot on.
Hi, my name is Charlie Wund, and I'm the CEO and founder of the Agency for Student Health Research. When I started the company over a decade ago, I aimed to help reduce injuries within youth sports. Since then, Injure-Free was created as a risk management software platform and has grown to become one of the leading injury reporting platforms used by thousands of athletic organizations and schools nationwide. Our expansive education library and reporting technology provides the tools administrators need to take the pain out of risk management. As a former high school athletic director and youth sports organizer, I understand the regulatory compliance requirements and need for individual accountability. Our goal is to provide a service that does better than checking the box. For more information or to schedule a demo, please visit www.injurefree.com. That's www.injurefree.com.
Well, I mean, Josh mentioned another important thing, which was just for the parents.
Hold on one second. That's 2 in a row. Are we recording this? Because that's going to be the record.
You just want it on the record. Don't worry. But again, Josh did mention something really important, which is that the fact is parents need to understand that it's just a game that you're bringing to your kids to try and have fun, to create a sense of camaraderie and teamwork, hopefully for the athletic exercise that it can also provide. But really, it's all about the kids. And Nate, I have to ask you, because you've worked in sports for a while, but you've only recently been working in sports after becoming a father.
Mhm.
Has becoming a father changed your perspective in any way, shape, or form about any aspect of sports, whether it's the protecting the, athletes just from background checks on coaches, or whether it is about players' health, and things like that? Is there anything that really jumps to the top of your mind that since becoming a father has been like, I want to watch out for this and try and create change now, so that way my kid can actually experience it the way I expect it should be played?
This is a great question. I think from a 30,000 foot view, there's so much information out there now, and there's so many games and sports and things that kids and parents can do, right? There's offerings for any sport at any time of the year, right? Which was rare, which when I was growing up, that was not a thing, right? You played, it's this season, it's this sport. It's this season, it's this sport. It's this season, it's this sport. It's no longer like that. You can play a sport, a specific sport all year if you prefer to do that. I have thought about this a lot now that I am a father. He's turning 1 on Friday, which is awesome. That, really what my goals would be for my son, if he wants to play sports, or if you want, my mom owns a dance studio, if he wants to dance or whatever, is I want my kid to understand, hey, we are going to commit to this for this period of time, and our goals here is to do this, right? Now, all those little details in there we can fill in, right? And at the beginning, especially when he's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 12, right, it's going to be a lot about having fun, figuring out what sports you like, right? Figuring out what you want to do, and getting exposed to as many active things possible, right? And getting around as many different type of styles and coaches possible in order to figure out what you like and what you don't. And that would be, I think, a good goal. That's at least a goal for me that I'm going to take with my kid. And again, I don't know what he's going to want to do, right? And I'm excited about that, right? Obviously, would love for him to do rugby, but if he doesn't, that's fine. But I definitely want to expose him to as many things as possible, and I want him to be able to create a love for one or two things, for a few things, right? Because once he gets to an age where competitiveness and winning matters, right? And I think that and performing matters, right? And where you can really start by doing certain exercises and by having a certain type of commitment, you can actually see exponential growth, right? Which I think is around maybe middle school, but definitely when you're in high school. I think a lot of those more things matter in regards to winning, competitiveness, understanding the role that you play and how you can get better at that role. That's the time where we would want to be able to say, okay, hey, we're going to focus on these couple things, and we're going to do this, and this is what we're going to commit to. And I want to make sure that my kid has a passion for whatever he's doing at that time. Whenever they make that decision, I want them to be all in, ready to go, and we're going to be there to support it, certainly, right? But I don't want him to do is something that is to feel like he needs to be forced into something that is something that he doesn't want to do, right? Because I think there's plenty of examples of burnout that occurs on that. And I think it's my job as a parent to just make sure that we're exposing him to environments that are safe, right? When he is through that, 5 to 12 time, right? Just as long as the organizations are put together properly, all of their, background checks are good, right? They've done all the things that they need to do in order to have a consistent and organized organization, right? And they can show that, then let's go, let's go.
Yeah. It's Nate, you're right there. And as the kiddo grows and all this stuff you get to a point where they say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And you do get to the, early on, it's no, you're going to do this and see if you like it. You can't say you don't like it until you actually try it. I told my kids is that as soon as you say you don't want to go, once they get older, is like, I don't want to go to the rink, or I don't want to go to the baseball. I don't want to go to the field. I don't want to go. I don't want to play. I'm done. And not just because it's a Saturday morning or something stupid like that, but if it's, when they're as reasonable as children can be, when they're making a reasonable and rational decision that they say, I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to go to the rink. That's where you just go, okay, I get it. Because it's the emotional commitment. It is the financial commitment from the parents that has to go here. And it's like, I don't want to be spending, thousands of dollars for something you don't want to do anymore. But it's like, there's always something that can fill that gap. When my son played baseball until he was 12, and he just said, I don't want to play ball anymore full time. I'm like, why? Because I just don't want to. I want to focus on this. And that was the key. It was, I want to focus on this. I want to be really good at this. And I said, okay, it's you're going from one to the other and not just willy-nilly. You're actually making a decision. I don't want to play baseball, which was, of course, disappointing to me because I love baseball. Phenomenal. But he said, I want to really, really play golf. And I said, all right, let's go. And of course, I hate that game. I don't hate that game.
Yeah.
I was actually quite grateful that he decided to do that because, it's like one door shuts and another one opens. Now I get to actually spend a lot more time with him playing golf and, really one-on-one time, which is second to none. And it's gone really quick, guys. So You're right. But there will be some uncomfortable moments in the car. Nate, no question about it.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to be prepared for him. But this whole time,
there's nothing
there's nothing you can do. Right? There's nothing you can do to be prepared.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing you can do to be prepared. There's no plan, really, because in the end, like when you think you have a plan, it all changes when you get to it. Right? And so I think
everyone has a plan until they get hit. Right?
Yeah, and I think as long as you're doing your best to put. I think as long as I'm doing my best to put my kid into a positive environment and then exposing him to as many sports and opportunities and activities that I can, I think that's all we can really ask for. And then when they make the decision, I'm happy that they even have a decision to make because some people don't, and so I'm happy that, I'll be happy that a decision is possible and it's made and then let's go, let's do it. Right. Yeah. So, and I'd be a little happier if it was rugby, but I'm not gonna say that. So
chances are, I'm telling you, chances are is that's what's gonna happen, and it is because your kid is going to be around it forever and ever, and they're instinctively they want to please you. So the hardest thing is going to be you not forcing it intentionally or unintentionally. That's the hardest thing. It's like. For me, it was like, you're going to play hockey. You're going to play hockey. My daughter's like, I don't want to play. You're going to go play. And she loved it. And my son wanted nothing to do with it. Yeah. Zero. Nothing to do with hockey. And I said, okay, that's cool. Because I didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Leading up to Dash coming, he, a lot of my friends were asking me if he was going to dance, right? Because obviously my wife is a dance teacher, works at the dance studio. My mom owns the dance studio, and I said, hey, you know what? If he wants to do ballet, that's awesome. Honestly, there's a lot of players that do ballet. Yeah. My dad actually, did ballet when he was a part of his off-season workouts, and a lot of his buddies would come in too.
Yeah,
do that kind of thing. Dash is 1 year old now, and that kid has no grace at all. So he just runs into everything. And has no off button. So I'm going to say right now he's more inclined for the contact than the non-contact. That's for sure. So, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I think you guys both put that extremely well. I really don't think you could have put it any better. I do have another question for you, Nate, and that is there some piece of advice that you've learned either as a player that you've taken into your professional work career or within your work career that you've been able to take with you to different jobs and roles that you like to pass on or just that sits with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A couple things. First, I think Hormozy said this, Alex Hormozy, it was, don't do anything if you can't do it for the rest of your life. And so I think really that's something that I've really stuck to. Every time I've tried to do something that seemed cool at the time, but not something I want to do a long time, didn't really work out. The sports thing has just been something I've been able to do forever. And it doesn't really even feel like work. Again, I am blessed to be able to be in the sports space and being able to work in sports. It's something that I never really could have imagined. And I'm just glad that I'm able to do it because it makes the days great. And I've been able to just meet so many amazing people in the community as well, right? Including you two, right? And the second, it's got to be, if you want to go fast, go together. Or, I mean, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, go together.
Mhm.
I think I've learned that in a lot of different cases, especially at the beginning when I was building my youth rugby club. I was everywhere, being able to do a lot of different things, growing the game, right? I was the guy, I was the coach. And now that we've gotten bigger, now my youth organization's gotten bigger, the team is a lot more important. And without my team, like we wouldn't be able to do and have as much of an impact as we do without the people and the volunteers and the parents and the kids that are now, coming back from graduating high school and helping me. Right. And so I think that's a big thing. And I take that into anything that we're doing as well, right? From the NorCal side, the team that we have, our board of directors, the people that we're bringing on to the team, and then the community that we have. It really is not a solo thing. And if you try and do too much by yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to end up regressing. And so really it's building a community and a team to enable you to get to where you want to go. And I know that from a Rugby NorCal side, everyone in rugby is looking at 2031 and 2033. It's when the Rugby World Cup is coming to the United States, 2031 for the boys, 2033 for the women. And so we're really now looking at that far out, which is great because we're able to plan to something that's going to be really big. A lot of the kids now that are in middle school and high school, those are the kids that are going to be playing in the Rugby World Cup in the United States, and hopefully beating teams like New Zealand and Australia and France and Ireland and really, putting us on the map for this great game. So, yeah.
Well, we really like to wrap all of our episodes up by asking one question, and usually Charlie gets the duty of this, but I'm going to take the honor since he's not here. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about hopefully sports in general, particularly youth sports, and it would just change and be in effect, what would that be for you?
Yeah, that's really tough. I think what I would say today, and I don't know, I mean, 5 years ago, it probably would have been something different. And 5 years from now, it'll probably be something different too. But I think I'm going to go back to what I was talking about when I was talking about Dash and my son. I think there's just so much opportunity out there, and there's so many games out there for kids ages 5 to 12. I think what I would wish is that all the parents, or at least anyone who's interested in other sports, will just play as many sports as they can, and really figure out what they like, and then start specializing at a later date when it really starts to matter. I think that's what it would be.
That's great. That is great. Well, Nate, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and just join us and talk. Josh, I want to thank you for being a great guest host, truly bringing all the comedy and great takes as well. Nate, we hope that you and everyone at NorCal Rugby do great this upcoming year, and hopefully Dash will be joining you on the field one day.
We'll see.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
Thanks, Nate. Take care.
We would like to thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Safety Goals podcast, presented by Injury. I'm your host, Justin Torres, and a big thanks to our special guest. And also, thanks to my co-host, Charlie Wand. To listen to other episodes of the Safety Goals podcast, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.